Welcome to another episode of Ecom Experiences, a podcast for e-commerce marketing leaders who want to grow and scale their brands faster. Join us as we interview some of the smartest brand founders and marketing leaders in the industry. Explore the lessons they learned, discover the keys to their success, and discuss what excites them most about the future.
Hi, it's Samir Balwani here, host of Ecom Experiences, where we talk to brand founders and marketing leaders about their experiences growing brands. This episode is brought to you by Query. Query is a paid media agency that helps brands balance brand awareness and performance marketing to drive predictable and profitable growth. To learn more about how we can help you, visit weareqry.com. I'm really excited about our guest today. I have Hannah Gates, the head of marketing at Reliefband. She's super smart. We've been having a ton of fun conversations, and I'm excited for her to share everything she knows. Thank you so much for joining us, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for us to chat.
Amazing. So let's start with the easy one. Tell us about the brand. Tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to be head of marketing at Reliefband, which is a wearable tech company. So we are a wearable tech device that was created for the prevention and treatment of nausea. Which doesn't sound too sexy, but honestly, it is something that you realize when you start talking to people about, the product and the company, you realize that everybody needs it. When you want to take that romantic getaway on that cruise, or you want to go to the amusement park with your kids, or, you're taking drugs or have side effects of other conditions that might be causing you nausea or morning sickness, with early term pregnancy. It's just something that everybody needs. And so I joined the company in April of last year. So I'm going on a year. And it's been a really fun journey. I'm lucky enough to be able to lead a small, but very nimble, very hungry internal team. It's something that I really love. I've been in health and wellness for a while. And this is a really, really fun product to market.
That's awesome. So tell us more about so you said you've been in health and wellness for a while. What kinds of brands? Because I know health and wellness is a tough market. Trying to convince people to better themselves is surprisingly so much harder than it needs to be. So tell us kind of about the journey that you went through, kind of brands that you've worked on.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I actually started originally in fashion, which kind of tends to go very much against health and wellness in that, you kind of do anything to fit into the dress or to look good or look cool. And sometimes you kind of ignore the health and wellness part of it. So I started in fashion in New York.
Short-term gains for long-term efforts.
Exactly. Yeah. So I started my career in New York, and I was actually through COVID that I actually made a really intentional switch over to the health and wellness side. I had kind of leaned into some brands, in my own time, doing some freelance work on the side while I was still in fashion to kind of get into this world. But I think going through COVID, a lot of us, we just realized what was really important. And for me, I realized that was, health and wellness. Yeah. And, what are we going to do for ourselves to carry us through this time mentally, emotionally, physically. So I was lucky enough to start with an amazing startup called Better Remedies, which was an over-the-counter medicine brand, but we called it basically medicine on a mission. So we had an amazing co-founder who was Ellen Pompeo. She plays Meredith Grey on Grey's Anatomy. And basically, we were just selling over-the-counter products for all of the ailments that, we regularly occur, cold and flu and headaches and pain relievers and all that kind of stuff. But with it, we were really on a mission to provide medicine to people, the 1 in 4 Americans who can't afford it. So I worked with that brand. I came on, I was their third employee. So I came on pre-launch, literally built the brand from the ground up, created that go-to-market strategy, and entered a really competitive space. So you think OTC, you're literally thinking Tylenol. You're thinking, these big, massive brands. And we were just, the new kid on the block, and we're trying to convince people to, it's an ingestible product, right? It's an FDA approved product. It's literally a drug. So it was how do we, convince people to switch over to a brand that really is using, all of the same FDA approved ingredients and doing the same in your body, but doing better, for the culture and for society. So that was a really interesting kind of challenge. And so my work from there, I went on to join a fitness tech company that had come to fruition and become really popular in China. So it was founded in China by some of the world leaders in AI. These are people who came from all sorts of different backgrounds utilizing AI, and they came to get together to create this connected fitness mirror fully powered by AI. I mean, it was incredible what the technology could do. And they had, again, like started and really scaled in China, and then they decided to expand globally. So they created a team in the US. So, a full team, CEO, from the top down. And that was another incredible experience. And, I kind of was in the, that real health space. Then I moved into this
really cool.
incredible fitness space, which is also very competitive.
Super
we're
competitive.
competing with the likes of Pelotons, Tonal, Echelon. I mean, it was crazy. But that was, and to your point, like, trying to convince people that they need to invest in this and invest in their own health and wellness and how they can utilize their own space at home to do that. Especially in a post-COVID world. I think during COVID, it was really easy to explain that to people, but post-COVID, that became a challenge in the marketing. And then, now I'm with Reliefband, and what I love about it is I'm still in the tech space. I think tech and health is such an incredible tool, and the ways that we can utilize it as consumers to really take control of our own health and wellness. But at the same time, utilizing technology rather than traditional ingestible methods of drugs and things like that. Like our technology really just taps into your body's own natural healing system, which is your nervous system. So it allows you to self-treat in a way that is 100% natural and drug and side effect free and all those things. And I think that's what people want these days. They're looking to the market to provide these kind of alternatives, utilizing the latest technology, but allowing for us to kind of get rid of traditional pharmaceutical methods for treatment. So again, it's an interesting space to be in from a marketing standpoint. Again, I'm getting the luxury of talking about nausea and vomiting all day, but in a way that really relates to people and daily life, I think. So it's we'll talk more about kind of the challenges around it, but it's definitely a unique space to be in, the anti-nausea space.
That's really cool. And it sounds like an area you're passionate about in terms of just like the health aspects of it. And so, being head of marketing is a really cool opportunity. I think it's something a lot of people would strive to be in. So tell me, what's your favorite part about the role? Like why head of marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am someone who just really strives in an environment in an environment that is kind of ever changing. And I think marketing, you kind of have to be, you have to keep your finger on the pulse because that market is ever changing. So it's about being proactive, but also being reactive to how we see these shifts happen. From a leadership perspective, that's something that I've always loved. So, I've always been, when I was kind of more boots on the ground and tactical, and I was the person kind of executing those things on the marketing side. I loved being really creative and problem solving. And then as I scaled, in my career into leadership, that you're still creative and you're still problem solving, but you're doing that through a team in a lot of ways. And so that's something that I really love. So I love being able to kind of be the big thinker behind a lot of these things, but then also inspire a very nimble, hungry, tactical team to execute, all of these big things and big initiatives that we're going after.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like being head of marketing or CMO role, you end up having to take on this like org design, org structure, incentivizing and holding accountable while still leading to ambition. And it's less about what you can do and more around how you can motivate others to do what they can do and get them to do a really good job at it, which is a really cool place to be.
Exactly.
That's really cool. So, we talked about challenges. I'm so curious. So I'll give you guys, I have one. I'm very excited to use it. I deal with a lot of seasickness and motion sickness. And so I'm very excited to try it out and see if it helps. But you'd almost think that you wouldn't have a lot of challenges because the people that have the problem know the problem exists. And if they are like me, are willing to try almost anything to make it go away. And so I'm so curious to hear about the challenges because you would think you just talk about the product and people will want to purchase it. So tell me, like, what are the things that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that like it is the product works, right? And I would never personally work for a company where I don't believe in the product. And the good thing is like the product's great and the product works. But to your point, you'd be surprised what that takes then to get it into people's hands. And I would say the thing that I always tell people is our biggest challenge is such a blessing and a curse. Because it is that we have such a broad audience. So, and everyone would be like, that's amazing. Like everyone wants to sell a product that anyone can use. Everyone wants to be the person who's, selling toilet paper, right? Because everyone uses it. But in that way, when we talk about kind of the spectrum of our audience, we are talking about people who are using it for amusement parks and cruises, all the way down to this other side of the spectrum where it's chronic sufferers, people who are using it post-operatively because of, nausea as a side effect of certain drugs that they're on, chemotherapy. That's a huge portion of our market is people who are experiencing nausea as a result of chemotherapy. So it's like those are, your couple going on their cruise is a totally different audience segment to someone who's going through chemotherapy, right? And so what we found is you can't target and you can't speak to them in the same way. We find that people, if we're able to, create this amazing content and target and market this motion sickness product that works for cruises and amusement park, this other side of the audience, these chronic sufferers, these medical conditions aren't going to trust that. They're never thinking that, oh, that works for so-and-so at Disneyland. That's not for me, somebody who is, chronically suffering with a medical condition, and vice versa. If you market it as this medical device that people, that is working clinically in hospitals for these severe treatments, someone who is just, taking a rough Uber isn't going to think, I don't have nausea that bad or that, intensely that I need this medical device, right? Like, so there just becomes a lot of nuance in how you look at these audiences. So we essentially, we're always trying new things. I'm a big test, we're testing everything all the time to understand what's resonating with the market as a whole, but also different audience segments. And, we tried to kind of boil the ocean with just using one kind of umbrella statement of the ultimate nausea solution. If you're experiencing nausea for whatever reason, Reliefband is, your product. Yeah. And we thought, that would be the right approach because then it, like you said, it captures everyone. We let them decide why they're, why they resonate with it. Oh, I'm having nausea from morning sickness. I'm having nausea from this. And then, we'll just solidify ourselves at the top of the mountain as this ultimate nausea solution. And that really wasn't what worked. We had to really segment out our audience into, what I call like the pillars of our market. So into these individual audience segments. And we just do a really deep strategy into each of those. And, a lot of these audiences, again, like those chronic sufferers, like that's a community of people. Like there are Facebook groups, there are all of these ways in which they are seeking, products and brands that they can trust. And so creating that like intrinsic connection between your brand and your product and that community, as well as other communities, like, a big one for us is boating and fishing, right? Like you would be shocked. I go to trade shows and I'll speak to somebody who has been a captain of a boat for 20 years. And he will still tell me that he has to take Dramamine 30 minutes before he gets on his boat.
That's amazing.
And so it's like, that's a huge market for us, right? But again, like you can't speak to that captain the same way that you're speaking to a chemotherapy patient or a pregnant mother, right? Or a soon-to-be mother who's experiencing morning sickness. So again, we just broke it up into these pillars of our market and our audience. And when we started doing that and we started speaking to them each uniquely, obviously, still kind of bringing the same value prop to the forefront, but, just illustrating it in the way that most manifests in their day-to-day life or in what's important to them. That's where we really saw success. And so, it's an interesting case study because I think a lot of brands maybe, can fit within that. Even when I was in fitness, right? Like you have different motivations of why people are buying this product. Is it to lose weight? Is it to just feel stronger? Is it because, you are an older, person who's just trying to keep up with their grandkids? Like, and, so it's like, do you just kind of talk overall fitness and overall like get the results you want? Or do you kind of segment out these audiences and use your content and creative to speak to them, on a more personal level? And that's just what we found that works for us.
Yeah. It's really interesting too, because it's different things will influence them, right? And like I can only imagine that the chemotherapy patient probably wants to hear a doctor tell them that it's worth it, versus like
Absolutely.
the guy that's getting on the roller coaster doesn't want to hear. Like it's a much different sell at that point.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's a great point.
yeah, that's
And
really
that's definitely
interesting.
something we've seen. Yeah, I think your point about the doctor is completely like when we think about content partnerships and brand partnerships that we do too. Like you're exactly right. Like we partnered with certain doctors and nurses that are again trusted in that space. Because even having your favorite influencer, momfluencer or whoever come on and say that this product
Yeah.
works and whatever it doesn't resonate with that audience the same way as having a partner who is a doctor or a nurse or someone in that space. So you're head on
Yeah.
head on the nail with that one.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's awesome. So I'm excited to hear you talk about segmentation and how you segment. But then a question for you would be, all right, so we've got all these segments, and that's probably at your product um, positioning and product marketing. How do you brand market when you need to build
Mm.
an overarching brand that fulfills on all of this? Uh, where segmentation may not be appropriate because you are trying to build a holistic, singular brand.
Yeah, and that's something where when I joined the company, that was something they hadn't really been doing. Like they were
Yeah.
pretty much, really, driving home this performance marketing, but there was a huge awareness problem. I mean, even me when I joined the brand, I was like, there's a technology that can just straight up stop you from feeling car sick. Like I struggle personally with car sickness, similar to I know what you've told me, and I was just like, how did I not know about this? Like Dramamine knocks me out. It makes me super
Yeah.
tired. So I was just like, if I would have known this existed, I would have owned one 10 years ago. Like, how is this possible? And that was really consistent when I was even telling people, oh, I'm taking on this new role. And every time I mention the brand, people are like, how do I not know this exists? And I was like, okay, that's the problem, right? Because we have an amazing product, like, and that's half the battle. But it's exactly half the battle is having that
Yeah.
amazing product. And the other thing is that awareness. And, again, I choose to fight these really big battles where I go into these really, these spaces against these really big titans in these industries. So, when people think nausea or specifically motion sickness, they think Dramamine, right? Like that is like the first thing that comes to their mind. That's what we hear. Even when we heard from these captains on these boats, they say Dramamine. And I'm telling them, like, what about the fact that, like, you have to kind of plan in advance for it. Like you have to, you technically can't drink on Dramamine, and people on cruises are definitely throwing them back. Like, and I was kind of like pointing out all these things, and they were just kind of like, yeah, you're right. Like, but
Yeah.
that's just the only thing I really knew of or that came to mind when I thought about this problem. And so, yeah, there is a huge like brand marketing thing, and that is, that's creating that awareness at a broader level. You're right. We definitely can't, get into the weeds of every, be able to
Yeah.
speak to someone on every single, indication level. So it's something we've been kind of building. First I had to kind of benchmark where we were in the market, right? Like what is our share of market? What's our share of voice? Dramamine really is the big
Yeah.
dog. They had like, 90% of the share of the market and the share of the voice. And they're also investing billions in it. So, we kind of we've started small in some brand awareness efforts, but I will say going, into this 2024 is definitely going to be our year of, big splashy brand awareness. Looking at a lot more upper funnel tactics like linear TV, out of home is something I'm really excited for. I just think, Reliefband hasn't had its like Super Bowl moment yet, right? Like I think that, a transit takeover, experiential marketing, like you have to get out there and you have to get in front of people and just get them used to seeing your name and your brand alongside, this, the conversation around nausea.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like, how do you have to tell the story of the brand and and then use media to actually, propel that out there. And sometimes an experiential
Yeah,
program is awesome when coupled in with actual paid media to kind of talk more about it and make it into something, especially for a
exactly.
brand like this or a project like this where there is value in explaining it, right? It's not I look at it and I
Totally.
get it. It's
Right.
you gotta really talk to it. And uh reality of the situation is while everybody wants to be better and make them and work on their health and wellness, they're so
Yeah,
cynical about it at every step of the
totally.
stage, every step of it. And so really overcoming some of that I'm sure has been tough and requires some strategic and out of the box thinking.
Absolutely. And I think, building in those credibility cues at every, point of the funnel is really important because to your point, like, a lot of the question is like, how does it like, why am I going to believe that it really works? Right. Like people are trying to sell me something every single day where they're telling me it's going to cure my acne and make me more beautiful. And I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to do all these things. And we're telling you that like, we're going to give you something that's natural and drug free and it's going to work within minutes. And like, how do you actually convince people? And that is like bringing, really building that credibility. And that's, again, through the full funnel and whether that's those content partnerships with these trusted medical professionals, whether that's, our messaging hierarchy, which really, and bringing to the forefront the FDA clearance, our patents, and also explaining that in a way when you're talking about tech, like, again, I've been in tech for a little bit now too. And tech is like a funny, when you think about messaging and messaging hierarchy and purchasing behavior, like it's how do you talk about tech, especially this really kind of innovative new technology, without going straight over somebody's head, right? Like, how do you do it at the consumer level in a way that builds credibility and answers more questions than it creates? So that's been kind of an interesting, tricky kind of thing to figure out from a messaging standpoint as well.
Yeah, because it's like standard advice is always message the benefits, message the benefits, message the benefits. And for a lot of products, you should message the benefits. But if you message the benefits and then don't give an exact reason or explain how it works, people just assume the benefits are not real, right? Like they just assume that it's marketing language. Yeah, it's too good to be true.
Exactly.
And so it's like the messaging hierarchy and then the reasons to believe. And how do you make reasons to believe that are actual reasons to believe that someone can understand, that someone can, and then you got to put it in a 6-second video. And that's always the next.
I was just saying, in those 2 seconds that you have someone's actual attention, like, and that's the thing, like, and you know what we've really seen, because our product, you brought it up earlier, like, product education, right? Like you see a Snuggie and right away you understand, am I aging myself talking about a Snuggie? But like you see a Snuggie and in like 2 seconds, you get why that's beneficial to you, right? Like it's warm and it's comfy and it's $19.99. So like there's not a huge, barrier to entry and you quickly understand why it's useful to you. And, but our products, like there is, it's wearable tech. So you kind of have to understand that part of like, oh, this is a device that I wear. Like it's non-invasive, like, what it does, all those kind of things. And so being able to do that, one thing that's been really successful for us recently has been connected TV. We've recently, I say recently, but we've been doing it for a while now, is utilizing connected TV campaigns. And that has been a really great channel for us because, it allows for that little bit more, brand awareness, but then you can go into that product education in a really clear and concise way. And even just like being able to just visualize that product a little bit more in video content versus, a still, or even in some of the ways that we can do on our site has been, really tactical and a really great way for us to kind of do a bit of both the brand awareness as well as, the product education. And we've been able to use it kind of full funnel. So that's been a really interesting, channel for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, we are big fans of connected TV, especially when paired with programmatic display as a follow-up. So
absolutely,
definitely a worthwhile experience. So you touched on this a little bit about Reliefband having a brand awareness coming out, and that you're really excited about that. Are there anything else that you're really excited about that either you guys are doing or just in the market in general?
Yeah, like if when I'm talking to like other marketing professionals, it's like something that we're seeing happen overall is people bringing marketing and bringing creative in-house. And that's something when I started, the company was actually like fully outsourcing their marketing. So they were using, like a really big agency and like they were having all that kind of stuff, outsourced. And I think there's still like definitely like a need for certain things to be outsourced. But I think like having some ownership in source. So like, again, they didn't even have anyone in my position in-house. They were kind of just like fully outsourcing and letting that strategy. And what I see now is either like a really great like hybrid balance of that, or just, figuring out that right sweet spot. And so for us, like having someone on the internal side who is really owning and leading that strategy. And then, me right now, like I did bring a lot of it in-house specifically with like creative, but we're still outsourcing certain things strategically, but being able to lead those external partners in a really, strategic, tactical way that's, native to the brand and the company and the overall business initiatives ourselves. So that's something like when I'm talking to marketing professionals now, is about that, like just figuring out that sweet spot of internal and external support and how you manage that. So that's something like we just brought some creative in-house, and it has been like super amazing for us. That's like awesome. Just the ability to be reactive. So that's something I get really excited about now is like, I think, and content is everything. Like that's where we're really seeing, content marketing and being able to like really crank that out and stay, finger on the pulse of those marketing trends that we're seeing. So I think, it's a great balance of being proactive and trying new things and getting ahead of, what's happening in the market, but also being reactive to what we're seeing. So yeah, I think 2024 is like going to be, Reliefband is going to have its moment for sure. Like if you've not seen it before, like you are going to see it this year. It's going to be in front of you. Hopefully maybe it'll be, somewhere there'll be some kind of experience at a city near you. But yeah, I think like when you want to really like break that barrier of just being, performance marketing on Meta and, kind of there's a ceiling to that, right? Of just like how many sales you can do and how you can grow and scale that without layering on that true brand marketing and building a brand. And so, yeah, 2024 is that year for us to really get in front of people. So like I said, I think, out of home, linear, experiential, that's some of the big stuff that we're excited about.
It's so funny you say that, Hannah, because I think we have a lot of conversations around org design with a lot of our partners, and I think I brought it up earlier on in this conversation too, because our take or our thesis on this is the best brands have a hub and spoke model. There's an internal manager and team that is the hub, and they manage all the agency spokes. And if they aren't acting as the hub, tying it all together, you're not growing the brand. Everyone's working independently. Right. Everyone's in their own silos. Totally. Nothing is working together. And especially as a consumer behavior, it has changed coming out of COVID, and people are more thoughtful and they recognize, we have access to all of the information in the world and we can find every single one of your competitors and research you. The buying cycle has taken longer and you need to touch more pieces of it. So yeah, I think it makes perfect sense. And I think that the best models are one where your agency partners have somebody actually on the other end, giving them the information, holding them accountable, pushing them to think of new things, motivating and driving them, being a leader, right? All said and done. Exactly. They need to lead the team. And it's also interesting about your take on creative and bringing it in-house. So we have a lot of brands that brought creative in-house and then also supplemented with a creative agency. So like creative strategy and creative direction is being done internal and production is being done out external, and then some like bigger things. And I think that trend is going to continue because I think the world of performance marketing ads, I hope goes away. I hope more people realize that every ad is a brand ad, whether it's a performance ad or not. And if you do performance marketing ads that look real bad, even if they perform real well, you are absolutely stealing from one hand to feed the other. And you're just not going to have, you're going to hit that plateau faster and you're not going to have long-term growth. So I think this is where ROAS has been king for way too long. And people need to take a step back and really have an understanding of what growth looks like.
That is so true. I think we're incredibly aligned in that thought process, because that's, again, like when I joined my company, they were just like really hitting performance marketing, looking at ROAS. And for me as, more of a brand marketer and someone who really values, like really, really high level creative and how that impacts, brand value and brand equity. Like I was looking at that exact same stuff. Like I was looking at these performance ads and they're like, well, like it does a 1.5, it does a 2 ROAS. So like that's fine. Like, what does it matter? Right. And then, again, but at the same time, we're having the same conversation about brands, right? And how the brand essentially, means nothing. And I also found that, the company was like really leaning on a promotional strategy and deep discounts and like real, really all of that. And I was like, when you build brand value and brand equity, you don't have to do that anymore, right? Like you don't have to, really do this like deep discounting promotional strategy to get people to purchase your product. You're convincing them that the technology is worth, like they should be willing to pay full price plus 10% because it's because you created that knowledge and that brand awareness and that trust in the product. And so, I'm completely aligned with that. And I think, as I talk to other people in marketing and in this space, that's definitely the mindset for sure.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So last question for you. You got a new leader, you're talking to them. It's their first time in a head of marketing or CMO role, 90 days. What's the advice you give them? What do you tell them to do?
There's, in 90 days, there's usually a lot to do, but I would say like the thing that you have to think about and to keep your head on straight and to navigate through everything that you're going to have to navigate through is finding the balance between being strategic and being creative. And I would, even as a leader, I think that you have to, really be strategic in how you lead your team and how you, build initiatives and strategies for them. But you also truly have to leave space for creativity. So I think when you're too buttoned up, and you and I talked a little bit earlier before we started recording about being a type A person, which I very much am. I like to be so organized. I like to have my content calendar built out for the entire year. I love, you know what I mean? Like I love to think ahead. I love to really have all of those milestones and touch points and things all outlined. But when you do that, you're really constricting and contriving the creativity that becomes, that you create space for on the team. And that's the thing. Like, I think that as a leader, be organized, be strategic, be tactical in all of those ways. But even if you have to build it into your calendar, build space and time for your team to ideate and to be creative, because that's how you, get into, a flow of actually being proactive rather than just reactive, right? Like start really like opening up your mind to where we think these trends and the market is moving and how we can get ahead of it. And how we can position our product in these conversations that we see happening. And so, there's a lot of other kind of things that I think every leader will tell you, but for marketing specifically, I think that's really important, creating that space for creativity and open forum. And, even in people and roles, that you may not think, when you have these, people on the data side or people on the analytics, like bring them into the conversation, like, really, again, create space for that kind of cross-functional conversation around on, what new we can do. And also I would say there's a real risk in kind of the stick to what's working mentality, right? Like, this campaign is working. Let's just stick with this or continue to crank out stuff just like this. That will plateau way quicker than you plan on it. And if you haven't been creating, ideating and thinking of what the next thing is going to be, and that requires testing too. Like that requires taking risk. And when you build out your plans and you're talking to your executive team, like, that's how you have to build that out is like, here's, what we're going to do that's strategic and tactical in what we know works in our core. But here's the 20-30% that we are going to invest in testing and trying new things. And they're not all going to work, but you have to be doing that constantly because this thing's going to plateau and die out. And if you haven't tested and tried what the next thing's going to be, you're going to find yourself in a really, precarious situation. So that's something I always build into my marketing plan is always that full, a culture of ongoing testing and learning. And nothing's a failure as long as you've learned something from it, right? As long as it's informed something going forward, then it's not a failure. It wasn't a waste. We at least, even if it's just to say, hey, now we know that audience is not the right audience for us, like at least that helps us narrow it down, right? So, just stay open to that. But I see a lot of potential in the more junior members of teams that I've led, like they are going to be the next leaders in this space and in marketing. And I think, those of us who are in these leadership roles now just have to create the environment and the culture that allows for them to grow and to flourish into the next marketing leaders. And I'm excited to see what that'll look like.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on pretty much every one of those things. It's interesting. We put a 10% outline of media budget for testing and we put a 0 return on it because we found that getting the budget is the hardest part. for testing. It's not coming up with the ideas. It's just getting approval on the budget. So if you just include it in the media plan, then the expectation's already set. It's so much harder to come up with a cool test and then ask for budget. Ask for the budget first and then come up with a cool test. You can always give money back to the like they're not going to complain if you give money back. So I love it. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today. If someone wants to find you online, where can people learn more about you?
I would definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. I have a lot of channels, but I think that's the best way to connect with me personally. I've been involved in mentorship programs and other things in the past. So I'm someone who, if you reach out to me for a conversation, especially around marketing, I'm always happy to have it.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Samir. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, remember to subscribe so you'll be notified of new episodes. And if you know someone who would enjoy this show, don't forget to share and leave a review. It all helps us impact more brands. If you're looking to improve your paid media, go to weareqry.com and schedule a consultation. We're always happy to chat. See you for the next one.